Good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, April 19th, 2017. My name is Walt. This is Forex Fusion. This is a demonstration video, a live stream demonstration of Forex Fusion Elite Platinum Edition software. It is just after 8 o'clock. Well, it is 8 o'clock now, New York time. New York session has just opened. Forex Fusion software is trading software designed to assist in trading the Forex market. On the screen right now is a disclaimer. It says essentially that I am not a CTA. We are not qualified, nor do we attempt to give you financial advice. You can read the other terms on the disclaimer. These are the terms for viewing this broadcast. If you continue to watch it as acceptance of the terms, if you disagree, please discontinue watching at this time. Okay, interesting day we had yesterday. That Article 50 speech by Theresa May really sent the pound sterling crazy, even more than we realized. We did our demonstration yesterday during the opening of the New York session, and Theresa May had made her speech concerning the snap election and all, and we had seen a spike as expected, a lot of fireworks during the UK morning. Prior to that, we did have a lot of crazy movement in the Australian dollar because the RBA minutes were released with some pretty market-moving commentary. So we had major news-fueled moves yesterday before our broadcast. That meant that by the time we did the broadcast, everything was so far extended relative to its daily range that we didn't want to dive back in. Of course, that's a matter of personal preference. You still can, especially with a hard news-fueled move. But when that happens, really the software is not of any help. You just have to go by support and resistance levels on your trading charts if you want to continue and participate and sort of push the envelope as the move continues. You certainly don't trade against the move, so there would be no selling of anything related to the sterling yesterday, and probably not today, by the way. But if you wanted to continue participating in with the direction of the move, the entry is just to set up pending buy stops at increased higher levels of resistance on the trading chart. Of course, our support and resistance consists of whole numbers, large numbers, and the horizontal lines drawn by the cycle timer. So that's really the entire way to have played those news-fueled moves. Because of that, we didn't really have many things go on, and not even really many alerts from the scanner yesterday. But we'll be talking about the scanner today. We'll go over the scanner, the usage of it, the different columns, what they are and what they mean, how to use it, and then if we get alerts that are relevant, we'll switch over to the trading chart. We'll place relevant entries based on the Forex Fusion trading rules and see how they pan out during the demonstration. The Forex Fusion software does ship with 3 different pairs of set file templates, a set file and a template, and 3 different versions, one for each style of trading. There is a scalper version, there is a day trader version, there is a swing trader version. All of those are short-term trading, meaning you're using a trade chart that has a time interval less than 1 day. On a scalper set file and template, The standard is a 15-minute chart, but you can use a 5-minute for a little bit faster movement or entry. The day trader chart is a 1-hour standard, but you can use a 30-minute, which is what I use here in the demonstration. The swing trader chart is a 4-hour for a little bit longer trading. And the difference between the three styles really comes down to how many trades you want active each trading day. Using the Scalper set file and template, you'll get generally 1 to 2 good trade opportunities per session, meaning Asia, UK, and New York. Day trader set file, you'll get 1 to 2 per day. Swing trader set file, you'll get 1 every couple days. So we like to cherry pick trades. Part of Forex Fusion is not trading indiscriminately, but only trading the best opportunities where there's a very high probability that we're trading with the trend. We want to be trading with the trend of the market. We're not counter trend trading. And we're trading using a theory and a concept that I call with all the odds, but I've seen it referred to in other places and in other trading systems as being with all the odds, that just use a bunch of the same technical analysis indicators, and if they all read the same way, they call that trading with all the odds. Well, that you're really only trading with one odd because you're using one technical analysis indicator, which really is only one data component. No matter how many different ways you slice and dice that data and present it, it's the same data. We'll talk about our scanner and how that presents multiple uncorrelated pieces of information. And when those data columns are in agreement, that really is with all the odds. So we'll take a look at that on the scanner, and we'll talk about the scanner, how to use it, why to use it, and why it's important for any short-term trader to use the scanner. In short-term trading, the first thing we do always when we start our trading session or trading day is to take a look at the economic calendar, the news calendar. There is a news calendar in the members area of Forex Fusion. There are also lots of other free online economic calendars. There's one at Forex Factory that probably is the most widely used. There's one at MyFXBook. There's one at FX Street. There's at least a dozen well-known and widely used economic calendars. I also do recommend for professional traders to use RandSquawk, which is live audio news. You can hear the news spoken in real time. There's a link to a RandSquawk sign up on our site. So news is the most important thing. We check out news first. We want to see what's happened in the session just completed, so we have an idea of what news may have moved the market. And we don't want to be fighting that news. For example, yesterday when we came in and we saw what happened with the Australian dollar and with the British pound sterling, there was no way we were going to participate in any cable sell trades or any Australian dollar buy trades. We just weren't going to do it because the news reactions, those were high impact news and they were extreme reactions. So we never fight those, and that's why we always check the news first, because that's the most important thing, and in short-term trading, that's the most impactful item, and you never fight that. Looking today at the news calendar, we've had overnight not a lot of news. We had CPI for the Eurozone come out, and that came out at almost identical to forecast, so there isn't any noticeable reaction really to the euro currency. And in fact, we're looking at the scanner, and I can see that the euro currencies have not, for the most part, come close to their daily ranges or anything. So what we have coming up in the upcoming session here, we have an interesting situation because we have no U.S. news or Canada news. We have no U.S. or Canadian news aside from the oil stocks, which will affect the Canadian dollar. So we won't be taking any Canadian dollar trades until that news comes out. What we also have, though, and this does happen a couple times a month, that this situation shows its face. And what we have this afternoon is the beige book, the Fed's beige book, which can move the market. Anything from the Fed can move the market. There's no expectation or consensus, and you just don't know because you don't know what the commentary could be. So that comes out in the New York afternoon, I think like 1 o'clock New York time. 5-6 hours. Yeah, 1 or 2 New York time. And so we're going to be cautious about getting into any US dollar trades before the beige book, because trading will slow down, become very slow and sluggish for the 2 or 3 hours leading up to that. So we won't have any movement to trade off of anyway. So we just got to keep news things in mind, and those are the things we have coming up. By the way, what we also have tonight for the Kiwi dollar, the New Zealand dollar, we have CPI coming out. And the CPI is forecast with a pretty healthy increase. And so we expect to see what we call a run-up trade in the Kiwi and some additional strength to the Kiwi dollar, which should begin sometime during the New York session. So we'll just be aware of that. Those are the news items to be aware of. With that, let's take a look and talk about the scanner. Why use a market scanner? Forex Fusion has really 2 primary components, a market scanner dashboard and trade chart templates. The market scanner dashboard really is the nerve center of Forex Fusion software, and it's something we keep running all the time. It shows you a market overview, a bird's eye view of the market for all the symbols you have running on it. And the intent is for it to tell you at a glance what the market condition is for all the pairs you have on it. The scanner does hold up to 35 symbols at one time. Updates them all the columns in real time. And most of the columns are, well, all the columns are color coded so that intuitively you can look at any pair, look at across the row and see whether a pair is in general a buy condition or a sell condition. So the first reason to use a scanner and the way to use a scanner is that just by having it open and looking at it at a glance, which is important in any short-term trading, you don't waste too much time flipping back and forth between charts and this and that. is that it shows you on a comparative basis with other pairs a bird's eye view of the market, and you can look at and see each individual pair and their relative positioning and directional positioning at a glance. The second reason to use a market scanner dashboard is because it keeps you from having to be tethered to your screen in your computer. You can set group alerts. We have pop-up and sound alerts, including spoken alerts. They're pretty cool. I'll be anywhere around my office or around my home, and I'll just have the volume turned up, and you know, I'll hear a spoken alert that tells me the pair and the direction for me to check out. The alerts can also be sent by email or SMS text. So you don't have to be using a scanner. You don't have to be watching the screen, and you get alerts for the entire market, letting you know there's an opportunity and a potential trade situation. So just by using the scanner at a glance visually while you're trading and watching the screen, and also having the alerts, these are the benefits of using the scanner. I'm looking now to see what we may have had in the overnight. I'm also, for alerts, I'm also going to go over a couple of alerts and trades that we got into after the broadcast yesterday. And then we'll see if we get any alerts this morning that are relevant for us to check out in real time. So I'm going to go through the columns and talk about the individual columns, what the columns are and what they represent, so you fully understand the data. And the intent of the columns is to provide a robust set of uncorrelated important information to let us know where the market is positioned directionally for each pair. I have seen a couple of other dashboards and scanners for MetaTrader 4 for Forex, and every one I've seen 3 or 4 maybe around, and every one I've seen, it's all the same thing. They give you, you know, data columns, but they're all, you know, columns made up of just the same 4 or 5 or 8 technical analysis indicators, and that is not useful. That is not useful. A technical analysis indicator, there really are only 2 types of technical analysis. Really, everything is either a moving average or an oscillator. So, you know, having 4 different types of moving averages and 5 different oscillators does not really benefit anybody. That's not a robust set of data. Our market scanner, by contrast, uses 10 or 11 sets of data, and most of them are unique, and many of them are data that's compiled outside of MetaTrader. So by having robust uncorrelated data, you get a robust overall market condition visually. So the top row here is, you'll see, are the timestamps. Timestamps are just to let you know that in fact your scanner is connecting to our servers. Our servers are on the East Coast of the United States. If you think there may be a problem, you can always look at the timestamp, relate it to your local computer's clock. If there is a lag of more than 8 or 10 minutes, then you have a connection problem. Good to know before entering into a trade that you are in fact connected correctly. The exception to that is the SD column. that runs internally, and the time stamp is not necessarily valid. So let's go through the columns. I'm going to save total for last. The first column we'll talk about is strength. That is a proprietary strength for each pair, or for each currency in the pair rather. It's calculated using a proprietary formula that we've developed at Forex Fusion that includes fundamental ingredients like interest rate differentials, options volatility, institutional positioning, and other factors. We start each week with a new currency strength, and then that strength is adjusted as the week goes by with news and events that occur, especially when they're surprise or unexpected news and events. For example, we had a big boost to the currency strength for the pound sterling after yesterday's speech. As you can see, it's now the strongest currency. We also had a slight adjustment to the Australian dollar, weaker. Of course, these currencies are relatable to each other, and then you come up with an overall strength for the pair, or weakness for the pair, that gives you a buy or sell bias. Of course, the best trades are going to happen when you have pairs with a very strong versus a very weak currency. The next column is correlation. The correlation column displays a value, a directional value, because it looks at, by looking at the correlated commodities price or equities index for each currency in the pair. Well-known correlations include things like the Canadian dollar being correlated to West Texas Intermediate crude oil, or the US dollar being correlated to the S&P 500 index. So this column looks at the correlation between each currency in the pair and its commodity or equity index, decides what that correlated instrument is doing and what directionality that correlated instrument has, and then comes back and does some more calculations and gives us a reading for each currency, which of course gives us a directional bias here. The next column is retail. Retail is a measurement of the retail small trader speculator positioning at MetaTrader brokers throughout the world. Brokers do publish that information in various outlets. We collect it and gather it and analyze it. The data is represented in terms of a ratio that is either above a 1 or below a -1. Above a 1 means that there are more buyers than there are sellers. Below a -1 means there are more sellers than there are buyers. However, this is a contrarian indicator, so that the more retail buyers there are, the more of a sell that pair is, until you get to a maximum where a maximum represents a good reversal area. As you can see, the pound dollar as an example, a -3, that means there are lots and lots of sellers on the back of yesterday's news. Well, that's a huge buy signal for us. And so this column displays the value as I just mentioned, and then the value is plotted against the moving average to indicate whether it's a rising or a falling value. And the value, the positioning versus a moving average will dictate the color and the directional bias here. The next column is Fourier Stoke. This is a volatility adjusted stochastic with something called a Fourier transform applied. I know that sounds like a mouthful, but it's really just a mathematical function that attempts to predict the movement of the pricing a little bit in the future. There are actually 5 color states to this column only. Gray is neutral, red is a strong sell, green is a strong buy. But we also do have aqua as a weak buy and orange as a weak sell. SD stands for supply demand. It is developed based on the concepts talked about by a guy named Sam Seedon. Supply demand zones really are just a fancy way of describing support and resistance zones. The value displayed is the further edge of the zone. Of the further edge of the closest zone. And if the current pricing of the pair is below the zone, this will read red and sell. If the current pricing is above the zone, this will read buy and green. The theory being that if the pricing is below the zones, then probably prices are moving down and creating new supply zones as it goes, and vice versa with the buy zones. If pricing is above the buy zones, then it probably is moving up and creating new buy zones as it does so. So that's the theory behind that and the coloring of that column. Ichimoku just uses the built-in MetaTrader Ichimoku indicator. The Ichimoku has 3 components to it. If you take a look and just put a naked Ichimoku on a naked chart, you'll see that it has 3 components. If all 3 components agree as to the trend of a pair, then that's what will be displayed here. If all 3 components do not agree, we will display mixed. Trend is a directional detection indicator that attempts to see if the pricing is moving sideways or moving directionally. Obviously, it has 2 states, trending and ranging. We want to probably avoid entering trades when we see ranging. SOCMED stands for social media. That is another proprietary thing we have where it scans social media accounts across the internet, looks for mentions of the pair, tries to determine if those mentions in aggregate are positive or negative, and then we'll post a bias if it finds one that meets a minimum threshold of prior reliability. The next column is Vola filter. Really, that's just a measurement of the average weekly range using various periodicities of to get a blended weekly value. If, as you can see here, if we've gone well beyond, and this is this value is a percentage of the weekly range. So if the number has gone well beyond 120%, I believe is the default value, then the coloration will turn to the opposite direction. The theory being that if you've gone too far one way, unless it's fueled by news, then you don't want to push the envelope and continue to trade that way. You only want to trade the other way because you're looking at a most likely reversal. So as we can see, no surprise that the pound dollar, you don't want to be buying the pound dollar. You only want to be selling, except that this was a news-fueled move. And when that happens for a news-fueled move, we ignore these columns. Vola filter, ADR, and ASR are all based on average ranges, and we ignore them all when there is a news-fueled move. So for the British pound pairs, We're not even going to pay attention for the remainder of the week to Volafilter, ADR, or ASR, because those are news-fueled moves. And when we say news-fueled moves, we mean, you know, high-impact news-fueled moves, central bank news, or major market impact news, major terrorist attack, things of that nature, or major central bank news, especially surprise central bank news. Interesting to see we have some things like the Euro CAD also have moved well beyond their averages. We're not going to touch any pound sterlings to the downside. Interesting to see here also that the CAD Swiss has dropped quite a lot, and so these values represent good reversal points. The ADR and the ASR, again, are average daily range and average session range. The daily range, and these ADR and ASR are over a 5-day average. They are represented as percentages that pricing has moved towards its average daily range. Percentages. You can set the threshold values to your own preference in the settings so that the coloring is set off when a certain threshold is met. I think we have the default at 100%, but you can set it to 120 or whatever you feel is appropriate for ADR and ASR to light up and show you the colorations. Now the colorations will be the opposite of the direction that the price has already moved. So for example, dollar CAD showing 107.81 red. That means pricing has moved well over 100% of its average range to the upside. And the same rules apply as we talked about for Volafilter. When these moves are based on news inspired movement, which is major movement, and of course by looking at what's one of the reasons we look at the news calendar, you'll know when that happens. When that happens, we do ignore this column, just like with the Volafilter. ASR is the average session range divided into the 3 major sessions: Asia, UK, and New York. Again, when this is in percentages of the average range for each session, of course, resets at the end of each session to 0. ADR resets at the end of each day to 0. Volafilter resets at the end of each week to 0. You can set a threshold also with the ASR so that when you've gone beyond a certain percentage, that will light up. This doesn't light up directionally. The ASR will only light up in yellow when the threshold is exceeded. Now let's go back to the original first column, and this is the most important column in the scanner. It's a new column. It's called total, and it's really, if you really are short on time and don't want to examine further, or if you get an alert, really a quick thing to look at is this total column. Total sums up the other columns and their conditions, their buy or sell conditions. The second number represented is the alert threshold level. So we have an alert threshold level of 5. It's going to be the same for all the pairs. The alert threshold level is 5. So if there are 5 columns all with the same condition, we're going to get an alert for that condition, a buy or a sell. The first number is how many columns we currently have of that condition. So the euro dollar, we have 4 red sell columns. For the pound dollar, we have 4 out of 5 needed buy columns. When there are an equal amount of buy and sell columns, it will show as gray, buy equals sell, then the number that there are of each. In this case, the euro dollar just switched to buy equals sell with 3 of each. And then if in the settings, if use trend equals true, then you will get ranging in this column if we have ranging in the trend column, indicating that you don't want to even want to bother with that pair. Now in the settings, you can, I can't show you the settings here in the demonstration because it won't show pop-ups. The streaming won't show pop-ups, so it won't show the pop-up settings files. But in the settings, you can turn any of these columns on or off for purposes of the total summary judgment. I think in the DayTrader set file, I think all of them are on, with the exception of ASR. Some of the other 2 set files, I think most of them do have most columns on. Possibly the Scalper set file has Ichimoku off. When a column is off, it just will not be included in the calculation for the total column. It'll just be ignored for purposes of the total column. Most of the default alert thresholds are set to 5, I believe, for all 3 of the set files: Scanner, DayTrader, and Swing Trader. You can adjust that yourself. A lot of usage of the scanner comes down to configuring it in a way that works best for you, for your own trading style and for your own needs. I have tested using the scanner with an alert of 4, alert threshold of 4. Sometimes that can work. You're going to, the difference of course is that you're going to get more alerts, but then you can take a closer look at each pair when it alerts. One note that the Fourier Stoke again has 5 states. When you turn this column on or off for purposes of the total calculation into the total column, you can separately turn on or off the weak buy and the weak sell separately from the strong buy and a strong sell. In other words, you can choose to only count the strong buy and sell if you prefer. By default, it will count both weak and strong buys and sells. So by default, an aqua is counted as a green, so that is counted as a buy. And that's why you have, for the pound dollar, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. And as you can see, it reads 4 out of 5. So again, this is updated, of course, in real time. We have had no alerts yet this morning. It is 8:39, 39 minutes past the open of the New York currency trading desks. Market seems pretty quiet. Not sure what kind of movement we'll have today in between no high impact news in the morning other than the oil and the beige book coming out at 1 or 2 in the afternoon. I'm not sure what kind of movement we're going to have this morning. But let's go and look at now a trade chart. Now that we've talked about the scanner, let's take a look at the trade chart. The trade charts are the other major component of Forex Fusion. Everything starts with the scanner dashboard, and that's the nerve center to let you know the state of the market and what you should be looking at for trade charts. I've got a couple already open. I've got a couple from yesterday. The two things I wanted to point out from yesterday was that yesterday after our demonstration, as we got closer to the afternoon, we did get a Swiss yen alert, which some of you probably saw on the scanner. Because we got that alert, I did go ahead. I think we got it just after the or just around the London close. So I actually entered a trade. You know, it wasn't a major trade. There wasn't a whole lot of movement in this pair. A lot of the kind of the market energy was taken up by the big pound sterling and big Aussie moves, but I didn't want to participate in those and push the envelope, although the pound continued and moved tons more. So you could have really made tons and tons of pips just following those trades, but you know, those wouldn't have been based on our Forex Fusion software. Just would have been following that news move. But anyway, for the Swiss yen alert, I did enter the trade on a break of support and resistance. So let's go ahead and talk about the trading chart elements. Again, this is the day trader template. The templates and the scanner set files do not change between them. They're all the same in their basic components. The only difference are the time frames and settings used. So all the charts all have the same components. And the scanner has the same components. So just the internal settings are slightly different between the three styling packages. So on the trading chart, let's talk a little about the trade chart elements. Of course, the dotted lines are the dotted lines, and the solid yellow lines are just pip spacers, and these are whole numbers essentially. And what you're going to find out as you get into trading, or that you know already if you have been trading, is that the most reliable support and resistance areas are whole numbers. And the king of all of those is the 0, 0, or 100 level. That's really the most reliable support and resistance that there is, regardless of any other timing tools or chart lines or whatever else, because those are merely chart artifacts, and so those only are reliable to a certain degree. What's really reliable, whether people are trading using charts or whether they are not even using charts, are the whole number levels. Okay, so for that reason, the whole number levels are extremely important. They are solid support and resistance lines, and that's why we plot them. So the dotted lines are the mid levels. I believe day trader, the standard are 25 pip spacings, and of course solid yellow lines at the 0, 0, and 100. These spacings work for most pairs. You might have to adjust the spacing a little bit for some pairs who are especially volatile or especially not volatile. You might have to adjust the spacings a little bit, for example, for something like the pound Australian dollar, or something that has very little volatility, such as the euro pound. But for most pairs, these spacings are all fine by default, and that's what the our first chart element we're going to talk about is. The prices are use an indicator called trend bars, which color code the pricing by rising and falling prices. In the sub windows we have here the primary cycle analysis tool we use called the cycle timer, and it's used in conjunction with the very bottom sub window, which is our advanced volatility adjusted stochastic. And these are set to slightly different lengths and input settings, and they're tuned to work together so that when the cycle timer detects a movement down, as long as it's coming down from an overbought or oversold area, it will draw a resistance line, and vice versa. When it's moving up, it'll draw an arrow and an associated support line, but only if we're coming from an overbought stochastic area. So that's the way that works, and why the lines are drawn where they are. The other sub window here is the small speculator positions. This is the same data that is on the retail column in the scanner. The value is the green line, and as you can see, it's below its moving average. That is fully supportive of a move higher for prices. So as of yesterday, I got the scanner alert. I did go up through, I did place a pending buy using Forex Pro Toolkit, which you can't see on the screen because it's the user interface is a pop-up window. But I placed a pending buy just above the dotted line. When we broke, I entered this, snaked around, moved up. Our take profit is 1/2 of the average daily range, as you can see, 67. So I think we took 30 some odd, 35 pips or so on that trade. So that's the Swiss yen that we had yesterday. The other one I wanted to mention was a little later on in the day. We also got a scanner alert a little later on in the day in the dollar yen. I did wait to see it sort of bottom out, get towards its and exceed its low of the day. Then when we did have a cycle timer arrow, I did enter, and again the the daily range, or 1/2 of the daily range rather, is our target, which was 30 some odd pips. So just look back at a couple from yesterday. Nothing else from yesterday was very appealing for us. I mean, the only options yesterday in trading using Forex Fusion, those were the only two options strictly using Forex Fusion. The other options to trade were trading Australian dollar weakness, which was all based on news, or trading cable strength, which again was also news. Those were so far beyond. I think I saw that the pound dollar was 400% of its average daily range. I mean, I get it. I understand for people that'll still chase that and still trade on the pushes higher, breaking up through the higher price levels. and I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. That doesn't, it doesn't conform to our trading method with Forex Fusion, so I don't really talk about it. But that's really what you had. It's the majority of what you had yesterday, other than the couple trades I just pointed out. So as for today, we've had no alerts so far this morning. The last alert that we had that is still valid looks to be a Euro Aussie from right after London Open. Now let's go back and look at the dashboard quickly again. The way to use the dashboard is, there are two ways to use the dashboard. One is to just wait for alerts. The other way is to look at the total column and just look for things that are either at your alert level or ideally above your alert level. The Kiwi dollar, for example, is something we should go ahead and take a look at. So we've got the Kiwi dollar. We've got the Kiwi dollar up for a trade chart. The scanner shows a 6 out of 5 columns in a buy condition, partially because we have also really come down very close to our projected low of the day. You can see price does look like it may be bouncing. It has not quite hit its projected low. It did not come down to the large number. So I'm going to say my prediction is that this is actually a head fake. I think we're going to bounce and then come down and hit the actual projection and the whole number before actually making a move up. So I'm not going to get in on this. What I'm going to do is set a pending buy. I'm going to set that pending buy just above the large number. So our pending buy is set just above our large number, and I'm going to anticipate, the real question is whether we'll have enough movement at all in the market, which seems very sluggish. The real question is whether we'll have enough movement at all to both bounce and then come down before the beige book. This might be a situation where all of this happens and then nothing happens. We come down, and then when the beige book is released in the afternoon, then it's time to take the entry long. Alerts are valid for as long as scanner alerts are valid for as long as the preponderance of columns remains that color. You can still consider an entry. Of course, the preference would be that you remain in alert status. If you get an alert with 5 of 5, for example, should go without saying that the alert remains in force for as long as you remain at that alert level. But even if you drop by 1, the alert's still good, generally speaking. So go back again to the trading screen. Pretty sluggish movement here. One of our trading rules we have, so let's look back at the dashboard scanner. Notice that the other recent alert And I say, even though I say recent, it came during the UK session, and it was a sell for the Euro Aussie. So let's go back and check out the trading screen. So we can see the Euro Aussie. Here's where we got the alert. So you had you actually had a sell trade for the Euro Aussie that, you know, would have hit its take profit if you used the Forex Fusion rules and placed your limit sell up at the whole number, high of day projection, and then wrote it down for half the daily range. But we might get another potential sell entry. We wouldn't sell here because part of our rules is that we don't sell when we have a stochastic that's orange and below the extreme oversold. We don't sell. When we have a stochastic that's above extreme overbought and green, we don't buy. We of course ignore those rules in the presence of news, as I've mentioned, but we don't have any news this morning. So we're not going to sell right at this moment, but we do have a sell condition alert from the Euro Aussie. So we'll see if prices get on up to where we might take a sell entry. Chart people would call that a double top if that happened. I don't call it a double top because I'm just looking at the various strengths from the given by the scanner. Something interesting here is that the small speculator retail traders really are selling this thing hard. I mean, you're down now to a -4 ratio. Really selling into that. Of course, they're all losing because the price continues to go higher. Unless we get some really good indications of this thing really topping out, I'd be hesitant to get in on that. Looks like a very strong currency. I mean, a very strong pair, rather. So I want to take a break. Oh, well, I'm not going to take a break. It's already almost 9 o'clock. I'm going to wrap up the demonstration. So the trades we have today to watch are possibly a Kiwi dollar higher. I think we're going to get a head fake first, though, and then we're going to come down to where we can get in on an entry down by our projected low of the day and the whole number. That's what the scanner tells us is the best opportunity. It's the only column with it's the only pair with a total column that's even higher than the alert level. So that's the best opportunity. Market seems pretty sluggish. I wouldn't be surprised to have everything stay slow until the beige book. There are some other pairs that are showing 4 out of 5 columns. So those are EuroCAD 5 out of 5. But the EuroCAD and the Euro Aussie are in the same situation. They're very strong pairs. So be cautious taking sell positions. And for the CAD, I would not suggest anything until the crude oil is released. And that comes out in another hour. So After the crude oil release, might be good to look at a Euro CAD. We do have a sell alert on the scanner. However, for the Euro CAD and the Euro Aussie, we've seen really, really strong movement. So be careful on those pairs. Also would not suggest any sell of any pound sterling related pairs for the remainder of the week. There's certain to be some pullbacks that you potentially could trade, but that was a very strong news-fueled move, and I would not want to be fighting that. You could get in on it going higher if you can get enough of a pullback. But we'll be back again tomorrow. I'm going to wrap up the demonstration for today. We're back tomorrow at New York Open. Those are the opportunities as the software interprets them for this morning. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.